My name is Todd Parfitt. I am the Director of the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality. I thank the committee for inviting the state of Wyoming to share its perspective on the Clean Power Plan. The state of Wyoming has provided extensive comments to the Environmental Protection Agency on its proposed rule. In Wyoming, we take great pride in how we manage our natural resources, providing for both environmental stewardship and energy production. As our governor, Matt Mead, has stated, it is a false question to ask, do we want energy production or environmental stewardship? In Wyoming, we must and do have both. Wyoming sends electricity to both the eastern and western power grids, reaching from Iowa to Washington. Wyoming generated 49.6 million megawatt hours of electricity in 2012, with 66% of this electricity consumed beyond our borders. This electricity generation includes 88% coal and 9% wind. EPA's proposal impacts states differently. Each state has unique characteristics in energy portfolios that drive the application of each of the four building blocks. For Wyoming, the proposed goal is problematic and unrealistic to achieve. EPA is proposing a compressed timeline in which states are to develop and submit their state plans. Considering the complexities of the proposal and developing a compliance plan, along with any needed state legislation, the timelines are problematic if not unrealistic. Wyoming's emission reduction required by 2020, which is 70% of the proposed state goal, is far greater than can be achieved through heat rate improvements alone. This disparity is often referred to as the cliff. Wyoming's evaluation identified either data errors or incorrect assumptions in all four building blocks. I'll focus on key concerns with Block 3, renewable energy, since it has the largest impact on Wyoming's proposed goal. 100% of CO2 emissions from fossil-fueled power plants, regardless of end user, will be attributed to the energy-producing state. 66% of electricity generated in Wyoming is consumed outside its borders. According to EPA, renewable energy credits will be attributed to the consuming state, not the producing state. 85% of 4.3 million megawatt hours of wind energy generated in Wyoming is consumed outside its borders. Yet, when EPA calculated Wyoming's state goal, they applied a 6% escalation factor to all 4.3 million megawatt hours generated in Wyoming. More than half of the land in Wyoming is owned and managed by the federal government, subjecting many renewable transmission projects to NEPA. While the intent is good, the process is slow. A BLM high-priority wind project took over 4 years for a NEPA decision. Now the Fish and Wildlife Service requires an additional NEPA decision. 2 federal fast-track transmission projects in Wyoming are in their 8th year of the NEPA process. Both are still awaiting a final decision. Finally, EPA's assessment of available land in Wyoming for wind energy development failed to consider high-priority environmental conflicts such as greater sage-grouse habitat, other designated critical habitats, and protected areas of cultural and historical significance. Factoring in these considerations reduces available lands for renewables as proposed by 83%. All of these factors lead to an unrealistic goal for Wyoming. Now, directing your attention to the 2 graphs. Graph 1 depicts as a bar graph Wyoming's glide path as proposed by EPA.
Which one is 1?
Graph 1 is on your right.
Thank you.
Graph 1 depicts a bar graph of Wyoming's glide path as proposed by EPA. One can observe the dominant influence of the renewables component as shown in green. After review, Wyoming determined what is practically achievable given EPA's proposed avenues. This is shown in Graph 2. The line in the graph represents Wyoming's carbon emission requirements according to EPA's analysis. The colored bars were derived through extensive analysis by the state representing what may be possible in Wyoming. As can be seen, there is a wide gap between EPA's and Wyoming's analysis. Based on the proposed goal and with limited options, the simplest illustration to show an avenue for Wyoming to meet the initial 2020 goal is to consider how many coal-fired power plants must be closed. This would result in 4 plants closing, representing nearly 4,200 megawatts of the state's total coal fleet of over 6,700 megawatts. Stranded investment for these 4 would be nearly $1.5 billion and does not include the cost of replacement power. We look forward to continued dialogue with EPA and the other states as EPA considers our comments and reconsiders their proposal. Thank you for allowing me to provide input to your committee.